I would like to just to focus on those people that are, doing those ambidextrous leaders, those creative leaders, because, through Digital Innovation Incubator, we are focusing on developing the next generation and, future leaders and talents. So how do these people approach, let's say, decision-making and problem solving? Because basically, in developing innovative solutions and developing innovation projects, there's going to be a lot, of decision making and problem solving in that sense. So how is the best way, or is there a best way to approach this kind of stuff?
So I can answer you here at two levels. One is something that I observe in leaders that are very good at being ambidextrous, let's say. And the other one is what the theory would tell us, let's say. So one is more from an observational point of view, what do I see that these leaders are characterized by? And the other one is more what would the theory tell me? What are like the protocols of how to do this well? And then I can try and connect the two. So let me start first with what do I observe? What I see in, I would say, all the cases of ambidextrous leaders, this is not a matter of luck. We are not talking here about the person that does one good discovery and they become millionaires and they move on. That can be talent, of course. There is usually a lot of talent behind, but it's not the repetitive, successful that we are looking for to understand in our studies. In our studies, in our lab, what we're trying to do is to understand what makes somebody really adaptive. And to be really adaptive, it cannot be just one hit and go. What we see in those people that instead do it again and again, that the environment changes and they still launch a useful product, the environment changes and they still manage to recreate their company, or they close that company and create a new one. What they really tend to have is that they have a huge level of self-awareness. It is something extremely important from a cognitive point of view. These people are aware of how they think, and that helps them surround themselves with people that might be complementary. So if they know that they are really good at generating ideas, exploring new things, they love novelty, they are aware that they sometimes have to stop and think if they shouldn't be exploiting. Or they are also aware that they might need to complement themselves with people that are more in the exploitative way, let's say. And you can use these two simple techniques, right? Like well, it's not so simple to be aware of your own way, but that helps you already to say, hey, I know that I am always looking for novelty. I'm really good at starting things, but I'm not really good at closing them. I have to do that. But it also helps you to say, maybe I don't do that. I specialize on throwing ideas and I surround myself with people who are good executors. That is one thing that I would say is common to all good leaders. And we are talking from founders of multi-billion companies to small startups. They all those that we study that are able to adapt again and again have that ability. They are, I wouldn't say they are the explorer type or the exploitative type. They are both types, or some of them are really both, but they know how to surround themselves and they know how to balance this. That's one part. Now, on what the science behind would tell us how to train to become more ambidextrous, there are like 4 critical components behind ambidexterity. And now is the time that one takes paper and pencil because it can get a little bit technical, but I'll try to break it down simply. 4 components. One is attention. The second one is something called working memory. The third one is something called inhibition. And the fourth one is something called switching. These are 4 processes at the mental level that allow us to capture the complexity of a problem, break it down and decide if we want to continue doing the same or not. These are 4 components behind cognitive flexibility. Now, let me explain 1 second each of them, and then if you want to go deeper, we can, or if not, we move on. What do we mean when we say attention helps you do exploration, exploitation better? We mean that by refocusing your attention, you are better able to decide, hey, I'm being too narrow here. It's been really long that I stick to this project and it doesn't work. Maybe it's really time to broaden up and get some new perspectives in. And that could mean do something different. That could mean hire somebody else. That could mean present it to a different audience to get new ideas. That could mean many things, but it has to do with broadening or narrowing your attention. It could also be the opposite. I gave an example of narrow attention, but it can also be, hey, I am all over the place here. This is not working. I maybe need to narrow and just focus on one aspect to work it out and then move on. That is the first component, attention. The second component is called working memory. It's a word that is a term that is used also in computer science to refer to how much capacity you have to hold things in mind at a certain time. So in our case, it would mean, in my example of my project that is not working well, would mean I am being really focused here. I need to enlarge my set of possibilities and I need to hold multiple perspectives in mind. This is critical and super difficult for many managers to do because they are usually successful in their own ways of thinking. And this working memory will require that you switch perspectives, that you bring new ideas into mind, that you take the perspective of somebody else, for example, and see things from their point of view. You take the perspective of not the usual customer that you have in mind, but something completely different. It requires techniques of creativity, and it connects to the third component, that is inhibition. Inhibition is, again, difficult for many to do because it's counterintuitive in a way. You've been doing something, your first answer is certain answer, and then it asks you to stop, think twice, take a step back, and start again. It's hard to do, but it's super powerful. Sometimes, really, before making a decision, if the managers stop and think twice, and really that don't go immediately with what they were thinking it was the right thing, but just give those few seconds. It doesn't look like much, but the brain works super fast and it can make a lot of difference. So that's inhibition. And then the last one is, if everything else tells you to switch, then the last one is dare to switch. And it can be in many cases that actually the good thing is to not switch. That can be, of course, a good alternative, but at least you get there in a different manner. So these are the 4 components. Attention control, the first one. You broaden or you narrow depending on what you think is helping you in that moment. Working memory, you really bring many perspectives. You enrich your view with different alternatives. Inhibition, you really don't block them. Many people generate alternatives, but they kill them right away. And that happens a lot. You generate instead and you don't block them. You hold them there. You inhibit the impulse to kill them. And then you decide if you have to switch or not. I don't know if that got too confusing or too long as an answer. I hope that helps.
No, I think it's going to be extremely useful in order for each and every one of us to learn how we can approach.
Yes. We've been doing this with executives that we work with. These are extremely successful people in their business. I would say generally in their lives, but that's maybe too much to say, but they are definitely very successful business people. And we ask them to come with a real life problem. It can be from their personal life or it can be from their professional life. Problems are very different. It can be from, I don't have time to do the important things in my job. I do not have time to innovate because I'm always pressed by meetings, agenda, etc. To, I have communication difficulties with somebody in my team. It can be anything. And we give them the same 4 steps, these attention, working memory, inhibition, and switching. And it sounds like something a bit abstract, but if you take your problem and you try to break it apart and you say, hey, should I go broader or should I go narrower? Let me take different perspectives in mind. Let me actually consider them, give them a chance before blocking them. And now I decide if I should switch strategy or not. It is for abilities, let's say, and they connect. Now, let me do the last step I wanted to do, that is try to connect this with the idea of metacognition. I started saying that really good leaders that I've seen, they share in common this trait. They are super self-aware. They are aware of, it's not awareness of how do I look, or I'm a short woman and I have short hair. It's not awareness in that sense, but it's internal awareness. It's my strengths, my weaknesses. I think that if one wants to achieve that, I think these 4 steps that I mentioned before, I think they are conducive to something like that. Because people, if you do this again and again with your own problems, you start noticing that actually you tend to be on a narrow attention, or you start noticing that you tend to be on a very broad attention mode. And by doing that, you gain more self-awareness, let's say. You gain more of this understanding of, okay, this is what helps me. I tend to jump to the first solution that comes to my head, and then I really marry that solution and never let it go and defend it, even if it's not good. You start realizing all of these things, and then that helps you, well, choose the good job that fits you, choose where you can add value, and also choose who can you work with. Either as you creating your own team or what team you can choose, right? If you are a person that is always shooting ideas, you'd better not go work with somebody like that, because both of you shooting ideas, I don't think that's going to be a really good combination, right?
Yeah, nobody is going to see things through.
Nobody is going to actually execute the stuff, exactly. Or yes, you go and work with somebody like that, but then you make sure that you have a really good team that executes for you. And I think that awareness is something fundamental if one wants to balance this exploration exploitation.